Good morning, children. Today we are going to read the chapter Two Stories About Flying. The chapter is divided in two parts. You have to read two stories here. And so today we are going to take up the first part of this chapter, His First Flight, written by Liam O'Flaherty. Here the writer talks about the first flight of a seagull who was earlier scared to fly. So let's read how this bird was finally able to muster courage and it flew. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. His two brothers and his sister had already flown away the day before. So, in the beginning of the chapter, it is given that the young seagull was left alone on the ledge. Ledge is a cliff of a mountain. It's a kind of a projection from a mountain, a sharp projection from a mountain. Like this is a mountain, and if it has a little bit of a projection, so this is going to be called as the ledge. So this bird was left alone on the ledge. His brothers and sisters have already succeeded to fly into the air, and this particular bird was afraid to fly. Why was it afraid to fly? Because he felt that he would fall down into the deep sea. His wings would not be able to support him and he would die. So he was afraid to fly with his brothers and sisters. Somehow, when he had taken a little run forward to the brink of the ledge and attempted to flap his wings, he became afraid. The great expanse of sea stretched down beneath, and it was such a long way down. Miles down, he felt certain that his wings would never support him. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. So this bird also tried to fly. It ran till the end of the cliff, till the end of the ledge, and tried to flap his wings. But when he was about to flap his wings, he became afraid of the vast sky beneath this mountain. And he saw that the distance between the cliff where he stands and the sea, it is huge. It is miles and miles down. So he was afraid that his wings would not be able to support him and he would die. So he did not make the attempt to fly in the air. He stopped. He came back and slept at the same place where he slept the last night. Even when each of his brothers and his little sister, whose wings were far shorter than his own, ran to the brink, flapped their wings, and flew away, he failed to muster up courage to take this plunge which appeared to him so desperate. So, this little bird knew that his wings were far bigger and stronger than his brothers and little sister, and when they were able to fly, he would also be able to fly. He had seen them running to the edge of the cliff and flapping their wings and flying in the air, but he somehow was not able to muster up courage, to gather courage, and to take that plunge. And he understood the emergency of the situation, which appeared to him so desperate. He must fly because his brothers and sisters, the smaller sister has also started flying. So it's time that he should also learn to fly. So he understood the gravity of the situation, but somehow he was not able to gather courage in himself and to fly. His mother and his father and mother had come around, calling to him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away, but for the life of him he could not move. So his mother and father also came to him and shrilly, in a very shrill voice, They were scolding him, they were threatening him that they would leave him to starve to death on this ledge alone if he didn't start flying. But he was so scared that he could not move. That was 24 hours ago. Since then, nobody had come near him. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about with his brothers and sister, perfecting them in the art of flight, teaching them how to skim the waves and how to dive for fish. He had, in fact, seen his older brother catch his first herring and devour it, standing on a rock, while his parents circled around, raising a proud cackle. And all the morning, the whole family had walked about on the big plateau, midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. So, this thing happened 24 hours ago. What happened 24 hours ago? The family deserted the seagull on the ledge. They refused to give him food. They wanted him to fly, and then only he would be served food. And since last 24 hours, nobody had come near him. Yesterday, the day before, he had seen his parents flying about with his brothers and sister. The parents were teaching his brothers and sister the skill of flying, how to perfect the skill of flying. They were teaching them how to skim the waves. Skim the waves means to move lightly just above a surface, here the sea. So, how to move above the sea and how to dive for fish. They are seagulls and they live on the fish that is found in the sea. So, they have to catch fish in the sea to live, to eat, and to live. So, the parents were teaching his brothers and sister how to fly and how to dive into the sea to catch a fish. And he had also seen his older brother being successful in catching a fish, his first herring. Herring is a kind of a fish. So his older brother was able to catch his first fish and he devoured it. Devour it means eating something hurriedly, quickly, greedily. So he had seen his brother catching a fish and eating it, enjoying the meal, standing on a rock. And the brother was standing on a rock and eating the fish, and the parents were circling around. They were flying above him in a circle and they were appreciating him with a proud cackle. Cackle means a sound of laughter. And all the morning, the whole family had walked about on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cowardice. So, on the one hand, the family was praising the elder brother for being able to catch his first fish, and they were also taunting this particular seagull for not being able to fly, for being a coward. The sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge that faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. So, this poor seagull, he was feeling very hungry, and as the sun was ascending and blazing on his ledge that faced the south. So this ledge, this cliff was facing the south direction, and the sun was going down, and this bird was feeling very hungry. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge, and standing on one ledge with the other leg hidden under his wing, he closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still, they took no notice of him. So, this bird, he went till the edge of the cliff, and there he stood on one of his legs and the other leg hidden under his wing. and he closed one eye and then the other. So, this is how birds sleep. This particular bird was not sleeping, he was just pretending to be falling asleep so that the parents um, they become scared that the child is falling asleep at the edge, and if the child falls asleep would fall into the sea and would die. So he was just pretending to be falling asleep and to be dying so that the parents come and save his life and give him some food. But still the parents did not take any notice of him. The seagull noticed, he saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau, dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. He saw that his two brothers and his sister, they were lying on the plateau and they were dozing. Dozing means they were having a nap, they were having a light sleep. And his father was preening the feathers on his white back. His father, he was cleaning his feathers, and only his mother was looking at him. So, other than the mother, nobody was paying any attention towards this seagull. She was standing on a little high hump on the plateau, her white breast thrust forward. Now and again she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. So the mother was standing on a height on the plateau, and the mother was tearing a piece of fish that lay at her feet. Okay, and then scraped each side of her beak on the rock to clean it. The sight of the food maddened him. How he loved to tear food that way, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. So the mother was making him feel the need for food more and more. So she was eating food in front of him. So the sight of the food maddened the seagull. He loved to tear food that way, the way the mother was tearing it, and then scraping his beak now and again to sharpen it on the rock. So he would tear the fish, he would eat it, and then he would sharpen his beak and he would clean his beak also. So this is how he liked to enjoy his food. So, ga ga ga, he cried, begging her to bring some food. Go call ha, she screamed back derisively. But he kept calling plaintively, and after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of the fish and was flying across to him with it. So the child was begging for food, and in their own language they were talking amongst themselves. The child said ga ga ga, that meant please give me food. And the mother was chiding him. The mother was, as he was not very happy with him, he was talking in a derisive manner. Derisive means in an insulting manner. But the child continued to call him. And after a minute or so, the child was happy to see that the mother was flying towards him with a piece of fish in her mouth, in her beak. So the child was happy that the mother was finally bringing food for him. He leaned out eagerly, tapping the rock with his feet, trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. So the seagull came to the edge of the rock, to the edge of the cliff as far as he could, so that there is no wastage of time, that the mother reaches him and he stands at the edge of the cliff so that he gets the food instantly when the mother reaches there. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted, her wings motionless, the piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer, and then, maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. So the mother came to him with a piece of fish in her beak, but the mother did not feed the fish to him. When she reached quite near to him, she stopped. She stopped flapping her wings. She was just standing very near to him but not giving the food to him. And he was not able to understand why mother was doing like that, why mother was keeping the food away from him. And he became maddened by hunger. He just dived at the fish. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. Then a monstrous terror seized him, and his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute. The next moment, he felt his wings spread outwards. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. He was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. So, being maddened by hunger, he just dived at the fish, and then a monstrous terror. Then he was terrorized that what have I done? I have dived down. Like now I would fall into the sea and I would die. But that terror was there for just few minutes. For a minute. It just lasted a minute. The next moment, he was able to spread his wings. He was able to feel the wind against his breast feathers, then under his stomach, and against his wings. He was able to feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. So he was able to fly. He was soaring gradually downwards. He was flying downwards. He was not falling downwards, and he was no longer afraid. He just felt a bit dizzy, and that also for some time, and then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards. So initially he was going down, then he started going up by flapping his wings. Ga 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 ga, ga call ah. His mother swooped past him, her wings making a loud noise. So the mother was ecstatic. She was very happy that the child was finally able to fly. So she just passed by him, and she was full of praise for him. This ga 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 is her way of praising the child. He answered her with another scream. Then his father flew over him screaming. He saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him, curveting and banking and soaring and diving. And then the whole family joined the seagull. The father came there screaming with joy. The two brothers and the sister also came there flying around him, curveting and banking. You can see the meaning here: leaping like a horse, and banking is flying with one wing higher than the other. So whatever tricks the father had taught them of flying, they were using all those tricks: curveting, banking, soaring, diving. They just reached to their uh, brother. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly, and he commended himself to dive and soar and curve, shrieking shrilly. So, at this moment, he completely forgot that once upon a time he was not able to fly, and he commended himself. He appreciated himself that he was able to dive and soar and curve, that he was able to fly. He appreciated himself for diving for that fish, for jumping down for that fish that finally led him to fly. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, with little ridges moving over it, and he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly. So he was near to the sea now. He was going down and he saw a vast green sea there with little ridges. Ridges means with small land area there, cliffs and um, rocks over there. And he turned his beak sideways and he made some sound in an amusing way. So he was very happy he was able to fly. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again, flapping his wings. But he was tired and weak with hunger and he could not rise, exhausted by the strange exercise. His feet sank into the green sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no farther. He was floating on it, and around him his family was screaming, praising him, and their beaks were offering him scraps of dogfish. He had made his first flight. So his parents and his brothers and sister, they landed on a green flooring, that is on the sea, on the green sea, and they were beckoning the seagull to also join them. Beckoning means calling. So this seagull also went towards them, and he dropped his legs into the green sea, but then he felt as if his legs were sinking down, and he screamed with fright. He tried to flap his wings to move up, but as he was tired of flapping his wings and he was weak also out of hunger, so he could not rise. He was exhausted by the strange exercise of flapping his wings to move up. His feet sank into the green sea, and when his belly touched the surface of the sea, he sank no farther. He managed to float on it. So he was finally floating on the green sea, and his family was circling around him, and they were screaming and praising him, and they were offering him scraps of dogfish. And in this way, this seagull, who was initially scared to fly, made his first flight. So, this was the reading and explanation of the chapter. I hope you must have understood it. Thank you.